Hey guys, I think the end may be in sight on this 24A12 project. I've got the power supply and audio amp chassis all back together now. Here's one that I have not restored. It's a rare treat to have two identical chassis to work on at the same time, one unrestored while you're working on the other one to use as a reference. So when you remove parts, clip parts out and such, you can refer to the other one to know how to put it back together properly. Otherwise, I take copious digital photographs, notes, whatever I need to make sure I can get it back together properly. Just having the schematic is often not enough to know exactly how the parts should be oriented, because sometimes it makes a difference. So as you can see, the other chassis, which is pretty much how this one looked. So what I did is I removed the transformers, removed the tubes, stripped the rust off the chassis, polished it up with some non-conductive abrasive pad and WD-40, and I repainted the transformer with some flat black enamel paint. I replaced the capacitors and resistors underneath with new ones. I recapped the electrolytics. I just have the cans taped back on temporarily because I want to run this unit for a few hours to make sure that everything's hunky-dory before I glue these back down. So let me put this back in the set. Oh, one other thing I want to talk about. This tube is a 5U4 rectifier that supplies the main B++ supply, and this is a 6X5 rectifier for the B+. That is referred to the high voltage and the low voltage, or B++ and B+. Point is that this one is a bit higher voltage than this guy. This tube is notorious for shorting out. It was kind of an innovative design at the time, where there's actually two rectifier plates in there with an indirectly heated cathode. Sometimes the cathode can short out, or the plates can short out together, which can easily take out the transformer and really ruin the set. I noticed in the service docs for this set, later units, they did add a fuse on the transformer in case this rectifier does short out to protect this. So I'm going to be adding a fuse. In fact, I'm going to add a fuse on both of these and on the main power line coming in addition to the existing fuse on the high voltage circuitry. And I advise you do the same. If you have an unfused set, at the very least put a fuse on the main AC power line coming in. Something else you can do though, it depends how authentic you want to be, but you can certainly replace these rectifier tubes with solid state diodes. You can get devices like this, which is meant as a drop-in replacement for this tube. What it really is just a couple diodes encased in a plastic can and then filled in with like a two-part epoxy. Or you can just wire in a couple diodes yourself. One thing you should be aware of though is that modern silicon diodes have a very low voltage drop, like 1 volt, versus these tubes, which could be more like 30 or 40 or 50 volts. So if you just pop in a couple diodes and remove the tube, you're going to be raising the voltage that goes to the whole set, which can change the bias points on the tubes. So if you're going to do it, I suggest you put in a resistor like 30 to 100 ohms, figure out exactly how much current you're going to be drawing, so you drop around 30 to 50 volts. And make sure you use a fairly high wattage, like a 10 watt resistor, and it's going to get hot, and so keep it away from anything else. There's plenty of room under a chassis like this. For now I'm going to leave the tubes in, but if I end up running this set for any extended periods of time, I think I may go with using some diodes in place of these rectifier tubes. Alright, let me pop this chassis back in the set, and then I'll give you a quick overview of the main TV chassis and what I've done to it. Okay, I've got the chassis back in the set. Before I move back onto the main TV chassis, I wanted to mention one other reason why you might want to replace these rectifier tubes, besides them just shorting out, is that it will actually reduce the power consumption of the set. On a set like this with two rectifiers, probably like 30 watts it'll shave off, which is pretty significant. Because these tubes themselves each draw like 5 volts at 3 amps or so to heat the filaments, and you'll be eliminating that if you go with diodes. So again, not a bad idea. It'll reduce some of the wear and tear on the power transformer. Overall, the set will last longer. So, yeah, food for thought. Alright, here's the main TV chassis, and again, here's the unrestored one for reference sake. So in the old one, you can see it's loaded with all the original capacitors that are kind of oozing and waxy and nasty. So in this set, they're all gone. In a few cases, I use some nice spray orange drop. Otherwise, I use these yellow, you might call them lemon drop capacitors. I also replaced a few out of tolerance resistors. You can see there are these new blue metal film guys, and a few power resistors like this one. This one in particular, it's for the focus control. Here's the original one. It's what they call, I think, a sand resistor, and it's quite literally like encrusted with sand that flakes off and disintegrates over time, so those are pretty nasty. Another kind of interesting resistor is this guy on the side here. It's a 6 kilo ohm, I think, using the contrast. Anyways, it's bolted right to the chassis, which provides a nice heat sink for it. On this set, it burned out and it's completely open, and this is a repair that I did not do. Somebody else has done it. They just soldered this resistor right across it. There is a modern resistor that comes in an aluminum housing with kind of a goldish flash on it. You may have seen them. I'm trying to get one of those, but they're back ordered like 8 weeks at Mauser, because it's kind of an oddball value of 6 kilo ohms. So I'm just going to leave this one in place for now until I can track one down. Also over here, according to the schematic, it should be 10K, and on the other side it's 10K. But an early repair, they put a 12K in, and since this set is running pretty well, I'm going to leave that for now. I may try a 10K later on, but you know, it's working now, it works fine, so I'll just leave it alone. Likewise, these capacitors, these are silver mica caps. These are generally very reliable, don't go bad too often, because they're actually a layer of mica, which is a very it's a natural mineral, has a very high electrical resistance. So a sandwich of that and I think silver-plated electrodes. They're usually used in fairly critical parts of the circuitry and can be rated fairly high voltage-wise. And it's a little bit hard to replace those sometimes, because normally they only sell like 500 or 600 volt caps. Whereas sometimes these are up to like 1600 volts in the old sets. So I'm just going to leave those alone as well. And and then here's that power resistor that I put in. If you recall, this was slightly shorter than the old one, so I put a little wood shimmin down here. Otherwise, all I did was clean up the tube shields and clean up the tubes. So it's time to. Oh, and I also restuffed the caps on this guy too. This one over here and this guy over here. Yeah, I get a little creative on this one because they wouldn't all fit, so I had to stack them up. Alright, let me flip this over, put it back in the set, and let's see if this thing actually still works. Okay, got it back together. I'm using a little test 5-inch tube again. Before I slid this chassis back in, I hit up the controls with some keg deoxit and rotated the controls around and worked it in, like the directions indicate. So I suspect when I turn this set on, assuming it works at all, the controls are all going to be way out of whack. Yeah, let's see. Tubes are lighting up, like smoking, no fuses have blown. We've got audio. We've got a video of sorts. Like I said, the controls are all out of whack. Let's see.
In the Midwest, 1970. Right now, all Mastercraft special order steel entry doors are 15% off, plus select models. Mastercraft entry doors qualify for a 30% energy tax credit.
I also hit up the controls on the back, so let me put the camera down and play around with this for a while and see what I get. Okay, there we go. I just had to muck around with the controls on the back. In addition to these 8 controls on the front, there's actually 4 more on the back, so quite a lot of adjustments to make. So yeah, hey, it's been running about 15 minutes now and it seems to be just fine. Audio seems clearer than before too. So, might as well pop in the full size tube.